Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Wednesday. It's Woke Wednesday. So as you know, I can no longer see like who's popping on unless you comment. So feel free to let me know you're here by typing in something to the comments. How was everybody's Wednesday? What did you think of the snow? Were you excited about the snow or were you more bummed? Believe it or not, as much as I like going to the beach, fall is my very favorite season. And I think I shared this before. I really love the colors. And so a nice, like the snow like this was great because it didn't stick to the roads and stuff like that. So I was pretty excited to see it, honestly. And it cooled down the temps, which is awesome. But that's a crazy change to go from 90 something the day before to 39 in less than 24 hours. Like that's crazy to me. All right. Well, I can't even see if anybody's on at this point. This is so crazy. I used to have good access to seeing that. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead. See. Let's give it one more minute. See if other people jump on. It is cold out though. I had the heater cranked up today. It was a perfect day because it was a work from home day. So it was perfect because I didn't have to go out, and I could just sit here and enjoy sitting there looking out the window at the snow. So, all right, well, let's get started. Happy Wednesday, everyone. What's going on? What's going on? Thank you for jumping onto Woke Wednesday today. And so, as you saw in maybe the description for today, we're going to talk about 911, or rather 9/11. That's coming up in 2 days here. And I don't know about you, but that for some reason, always that day just always hits a little bit different. So, and I don't know if that happens to other people as well. So I want you to close your eyes and I want you to remember where you were, what you were doing when you heard about the terrorist attacks on September 11th. So, geez, we're coming up on that was 19 years ago now. 19, that's crazy. Where were you? What were you doing? So I remember at the time I had needed to sleep a little bit longer. My now ex-husband had had surgery shortly before that day, and so not getting a ton of sleep, and so I had slept a little bit longer and was up getting ready for work. And this was before I had a cell phone or anything, and so was up getting ready for work. Didn't know anything was going on and got into work, and they had all the TVs turned to it. And at the time, I was working as a victim advocate for domestic violence. And so it was like this crazy, we all just stood there or sat there and watched the TV pretty much all day long. Hi, Guy. I remember also the following day on September 12th, I remember going out to a home visit for somebody, one of the victims and or survivors, and we were talking about something that had just come up on the TV, and I was walking down her stairs at the same time and sprained my ankle pretty bad. But what were you doing on September 11th, 2001? What was different about your life? I look back to that, and my daughter wasn't even born yet. So, life was quite a bit different. I was, as I said, working as a domestic violence victim advocate. And, so those were some of the big things in my life that were quite a bit different. Now, think about on that day, think about the feeling that you had. Remember kind of that feeling that you had. And yes, I'm purposely putting you into this place, I know. So think about kind of the fear, think about what the unknown feeling was that you had. And then I want you to try to think back and remember if you made any, I don't want to say promises, but if you said to yourself that you were going to start doing anything differently because of this, because of what happened. On that day, 2,977 people died. There were 25,000 non-fatal injuries. So for the families and friends of all of those folks, life definitely had some big changes and long-lasting changes as well. And I can imagine that in that time, outside of their fear, there was that in the back of their head, there was that thought of, oh my gosh, we had planned to go do this. We had planned to go do that. We tend to live like that. We tend to think maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. We put off spending time with special people in our lives because we think they're always going to be there, and they may not. We think that we tend to just rely on tomorrow. So, how has your life changed since then? Like I said, now I have a 17, almost 18-year-old daughter. So that's quite a bit of change in those years. So George Santayana said, he was a writer and philosopher, and he said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. It's often repeated as being those who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it. Either way, if we don't pay attention to the lessons of the past, then we're doomed to keep repeating it. I posted something about this last week about recognizing the patterns that keep taking place in our life and waking up to those patterns, being woke to those patterns of things that are happening in our lives. So as we sit here and now we are in COVID, I mean, we're kind of, I think a lot of us feel like we're coming out of COVID, but as we've seen, we don't know what's going to happen next. And so when we hit COVID, and thinking back to when it first hit, I just remember New York City, or New York as a whole, was just getting hit really hard. They were having a lot of deaths, and that was a very scary thing. And we were, first being put down into quarantine, or some people were calling it lockdown. We were staying at home the majority of the time, only going out to maybe, essential things, get gas, that kind of thing, get groceries. But in that same time, we probably found ourselves making a lot of similar, again, not promises, but statements to ourselves. I'm going to stop taking this for granted. I'm going to start living my life a little bit more fully, because now I see what it's like when I don't get to live life even the normal way. And so I want you to think back to those things you told yourself after 9/11, and I want you to ask yourself, did you actually change those things? If you told yourself, I'm going to start spending more time with my loved ones, did you actually start doing that? A few weeks ago in Woke Wednesday, we talked about how the study that was done that said the average American family spends less than 15 minutes per week in meaningful conversation. So did we really fulfill what we said we were going to do? Maybe we said, you know what, I'm going to stop being afraid and I'm going to start living life more fully. I'm going to take that risk and, go try something that I've always wanted to try. Maybe it was, singing karaoke, or maybe it was dancing, or maybe it was, going shark diving. I don't know. But did you do it? Have you done it since then? Maybe during that time you said, you know what, life is too short. And probably right after 9/11, you probably weren't necessarily thinking like, I'm going to go travel the world. and see this beauty that God put around me. But sometimes, that's or especially after COVID, maybe we might have had that after being, stuck in our houses. We might have been like, okay, when this is over, I'm getting out. I'm going everywhere I can possibly go. And I know COVID's not over, but have you started looking at that? Have you started looking at how am I going to make that happen? So here we are in another situation. And the way that I'm looking at it is that, as much as 9/11 affected us, and now they call it the day Patriot Day in the US, and so there's a lot of times there's a lot of somber feelings on that day. But if we do, it looks like we all just kind of got back into our normal routine, and we didn't change much of how we choose to live our lives. We got right back onto what I always refer to, as as the conveyor belt of life. And that stopped us from doing those things that we wanted to really do. So in essence, we really are repeating. Now, I know it's a totally different situation, but if we don't learn from the history, in other words, in this essence, we did not learn after 9/11 necessarily to stop taking people for granted. We did not learn to stop living out, in fear. We did not learn to challenge ourselves and push ourselves out of our comfort zone. And so now we're being challenged again. So we're still in COVID. There's still time. There's still plenty of time to start to work on some of those things. Maybe things that you had said 19 years ago that you were going to do differently. Now is the time. So there's a quote that says, what you are not changing, you are choosing. And so if you're not, the dog knocked the table. So if you are not changing things, you're choosing it. So if you're ever sitting here going, gosh, there's got to be more to life than this. Well, if you're not making choices to change it, then you're actually choosing to continue to live like that. So a lot of times when we make changes, we might try that change for a little bit, and then we might just give up on it. I think about like weight loss. A lot of people do this with weight loss. They might go, we see it every January. People set that goal, their New Year's resolution, and they go, I'm going to get healthy this year. I'm going to lose weight this year. I'm going to drop this many pounds this year. And the gyms are packed in January. And by not even February, by the end of January, the gyms are no longer packed. We see that people, when there's a commitment involved to changing things, they don't necessarily stick it out. They're not seeing results right away. So they say that it takes anywhere from 18 to 254 days to change something, to change a behavior, to make a behavior a habit. Now that's a big difference. And people who have done this consistently over and over, they're probably closer to that 18-day range. And for people who are just trying to start to do something different and create a new habit in their life, they're probably more on that longer end. The average is 66 days. So the 254, that's kind of a little bit interesting. So, but if you think about it, if we don't put ourselves into something for that long, we can't expect things to change. And so when you're at day 18 and you're like, dang it, it's day 18 and nothing's changed. I still am not having a better relationship with my loved ones. I still am not losing weight. I still don't feel like my life is organized, whatever it is. And so a lot of people stop then. And last week we talked about shortcuts. And the whole thing with shortcuts is remember, the shortcut is to actually just do it right and commit to it the first time. So we have to go all in on something if we want it to truly change in our lives. We look at how, the government and different places handled 9/11 all throughout the world. It wasn't even just in the US, but we look at some of the things that were put into place. So safety protocols that were put into place when flying. We're never going to go back to a place where, you know, those cabins the to where the pilots sit are unlocked. We're never going to go back to that. They decided, here's the protocol we need to put into place, all the different screenings that we do now as we're going through the airport. So we look at all these things that have changed our lives, and some people grumble about it. I try really hard not to. I make a conscious effort because I know it was put in place to keep me safe. But we look at how they implemented something, and it's now become a normal part of life. Here we are 19 years later. A lot of people don't even remember what flying was like before, right? A lot of people don't even remember what it was like to maybe have to, you know, go through a security check line and be that random person who has to have everything checked out, you know, more thoroughly and stuff like that. But it's something that has become a normal part of life, and that can happen with you too. If you make that commitment that you really want something in your life to change and you stick to it, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy, and I'm not saying you're not going to have fallbacks, and I'm not saying you're not going to have bad days, but if you stick to it long enough, it will become part of normal life for you. And that's where the magic is, right? Looking over at some comments, Guy said instant application is real wisdom. Yeah, wisdom is definitely, you know, taking a step back, looking at things not only proactively but objectively, and really being able to apply, you know, sit in that. I talk a lot about sitting in our emotions, and so if we kind of sit in that, and yes, sometimes, look, I can tell you, sometimes sitting in that is really uncomfortable and it's really painful, but we have to sometimes be there. As you know, I did a Woke Wednesday video on this quite a while back about our pain points. And our pain points are often the things that push us to making the changes in our life towards what we actually want to achieve. So as we go into Friday, 9/11, the actual day, I just want you to really reflect on, over the next few days, really, what is it that maybe you had told yourself you were going to change 19 years ago? Maybe it's even something that you told yourself you were going to change in the last 6 months since COVID hit. I think we're about 5 months now. And what are you doing to change that? And I really want you to reflect on that, because again, if we don't learn from history, it's going to repeat itself. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to get caught in another circumstance or another situation where I'm thinking, I should have done this differently. I meant to call that person. I meant to reach out to that person. I meant to be there for that person, and I wasn't. So thanks for jumping on today. I will see you guys next week, and have a great rest of your week and a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.